Hi everyone, welcome. Out here in my worm bag, it's been over 2 weeks, 15 days since our last check-in to feed these little guys. So I figured they're due, and I've been wanting to see if I can get the span of time in between check-ins increased. And in order to accomplish that, I think all you need to do is make sure you've left them with abundant food and bedding. So I have a tray here with as much food as I would normally feed perhaps 2 systems, and even here I've got this large bag, well, not large, but pretty large from the perspective of all of this is shredded paper bag inside this paper bag. It's actually a much larger paper bag that's shredded. It's one of those leaf collection bags, and I was kind of shocked to see that I was able to shred a bag that size and still take all those shredded paper fragments and place them into a fairly small container like that to bring it over here. So let's get right to it, shall we? I like the way this piece of wood has been keeping things here in the system nice and damp. You see, it's so damp that some of the material down in the system is adhering to the plywood even. We had given this system a real large quantity of grass a few check-ins ago, 2 check-ins ago. It is kind of nice to only dig a shallow bit down and here and there bump into a worm exploring the stuff. And I don't know, something about these worms, there's just something about the color. Little guy is so dark, blends in almost completely with the material that they're inhabiting. So I don't know, something about that dark color. It's almost like when you see somebody who's really tan, you don't know if they're a healthy eater or if they're really healthy, but just something about that nice tan makes you think that that person's probably nice and healthy. And the material within the grass, like there's, nice breakdown happening. It seems like some of the grass is just kind of converting to compost. I don't know if it's necessarily the worms doing it or if it's just some sort of other breakdown process happening here. But I had this idea of, bringing the paper shreds in here in order to complement all this grass that's in here. And I thought that that would really be a nice way to go at today's check-in. So maybe the best way to do that would be to do it right now. Just pile all that paper right in here and then go through the whole thing and give the whole thing a nice stir before I find some reason to talk myself out of it. I mean, I was already partially talking myself out of putting the whole thing in here, thinking that perhaps at least a handful or 2 of it would be nice to keep right down where we feed. And the other thing is that I really jam-packed all this shredded paper bag in here tight to make as much fit as possible, so the stuff's expanding as I pull it out of the bag. So let's see how this looks if I start to incorporate it with the grass that's right below it. Here I've got some sort of a stem of a pumpkin. How do you like that? I didn't know that I had stems of pumpkin in here. I figured the grass, since it was left last time pretty much on the surface the way we found it, we didn't make much effort to blend it in. I figured on this go around it would make good sense to actually incorporate it now, get it down into the bed now that it's been in here for 2 check-ins, or the time between 2 check-ins. And then this paper too seemed like if I were to just dampen it would all start matting up against itself and everything. So I do want to come in here with the garden hose and apply a good bit of moisture to complement all this dry shredded paper. But I figured before doing so, it would be nice if the paper had something blended into it. All these leaves blended into the paper, or vice versa, I think is going to create a good mix into which we can add a good bit of moisture. And now I'm digging a little bit deeper, not realizing how deep I could have gone. I thought the system was a little bit more shallow. Well, that's okay. I'll do one more quick lap around where I'm actually touching the bottom this time as I probe down to pull material up and to blend in shredded paper. And you know, that last lap I think really did help a lot because we had a whole bunch of untapped nice vermicompost down low there, which now benefits from having a whole bunch of additional material blended into it. You know, we've neatly fluffed up this system considerably. Not only the stuff that was already in here settled down nicely, all getting aerated and fluffed up, and on top of that, now blending in a whole bunch of new stuff. And we're not even done yet because we still have yet to bring in those couple handfuls of leftover paper shreds that I didn't use up, which can go in as a nice foundation for the feeding. This is that chunk of the when you buy a bunch of bananas, and then this is like the stem with the banana on it, but that's that chunk that all the stems are connected to when you buy a bunch. That's a somewhat tougher material. It's going to take that stuff a little longer to break down. And you know, all that tilling up that I did, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I did manage to somehow circle around the middle without disturbing it. So now we're actually getting down into the section where the last feeding was applied. And now I guess is the opportunity to spot worms. Although maybe my disruption has sent them scattering in all different directions. It did seem like those first couple handfuls had a good many worms in them. And they really have such nice color. You know, the black soldier fly larvae that we've been spotting in here over the past few check-ins, I'm starting to think that the temperatures for them is getting way too cold. Way too cold for the black soldier fly larvae to continue developing into a fly. From what I understand, I mean, I was kind of into the topic for a while, and I think I'm remembering correctly that a black soldier fly larvae can actually just hunker down and suspend its development into a fly, even during very cold temperatures, and then wait out a point in time in the future when it can actually continue with its development. But for that development to occur, there has to be some pretty good warm, cozy temperatures, and I'm pretty sure we're well beyond that at this point. So while the black soldier fly larvae might struggle a little bit in the cooler conditions, I believe that our worms are going to do just fine in here. So I've definitely created a large, very large hole, but I did that intentionally only because it does seem to me like we're going to need it. So I figured if I come in here with about half of this, just paper shreds, I've still got enough to pile on top of the food afterwards. But look at all that. There is a lot of food going in here, a lot of bedding going in here. So I've got a feeling I should feel pretty comfortable about letting this system go for a somewhat longer than usual amount of time before needing to come back. And that would be kind of nice, you know. On this occasion, 15 days is even kind of on the outer limits of the amount of time I usually allow to pass between my worm bin check-ins. It's just the amount of time that I managed to get through feeding all my systems and return to the first system again. And sometimes I'll even do 2 a day or whatever when I'm feeling really pressured to liquidate some of the stuff that's taking up space in my freezer. So I figured, you know what, let's get this whole thing almost to the point where we're ready to put the covers back on, and then we'll just come in with the hose. I am questioning whether much moisture is even all that important in here, because everything feels quite nice. During a couple recent check-ins, I remember having the hose in here and dampening things considerably on a number of occasions, and with that plywood covering everything here, the stuff hangs on to its moisture quite nicely. It's got nowhere to go. It can't evaporate away. So let's give them a little bit. I don't think we need much. Oops, this ain't the setting I want. That was the setting that I was using to rinse out my worm bins the other day when I was doing some housekeeping. But I think this setting will work nicely to dispense a fairly large quantity of moisture into here very fast. And I guess the nice thing about this system is that it is a bag, but can you hear that? There's plastic. It's 2 bags with a plastic in between, so it's really 3 bags. The plastic bag in between the 2 grow bags, though, really does hold on to moisture well. It has a few holes in it, which allows for standing water like what we probably put in there now to seep out and drain. So that won't be a problem. So you could be pretty much as generous as you want with liquid in this system. It'll drain if it's too much, if you've been too generous. So I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our check-in. Let's see, how do these pieces go together? I could barely even tell anymore, the patterns fading and the wood's cracking, but it still looks better than nothing, right? Just a little decoration, and soon more colorful autumn leaves will fall on top of this to decorate it even more. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.